We've been talking about, of course, experience capitalization. We have already been discussing this in the webinars in the past, and most important of all, you have all been following this on the e-learning course on the tools on your own. So the idea with this session is not to repeat all of that. No, it is just to present a few ideas so that we go together and we share some ideas together on the basis of your experience, what you are doing. One of the things that we have been discussing always, and especially in these webinars, is this idea of learning by doing. So the purpose is we try to start to complete a capitalization process, and I think that that is going to be the best way that we identify how to go about it. Now, we've been talking, we've been talking last week about selecting an experience. And I think that's perhaps one of the most important steps we have to do when we're going to be talking about our work and we are interested in drawing lessons. Perhaps the most crucial thing is that we have to focus, what am I going to be looking at? And that is, we're going to be focusing on part of our work, what we call our experience, and we have to narrow it, and we have to identify why is it that I'm so interested in this particular case, and what is this particular case? Where did it happen? What was it about? No, so those were all the things that we discussed last week, and you must remember it's very important to select a case which is going to give me interesting lessons. And it's very important to select a case which is different, new, which is going to show something that other people don't know. Because if I'm just repeating what everybody knows, then it becomes a bit boring and nobody's really going to be interested in reading my case. Yes? So we select a case that people don't know about and something which is going to give me lessons that nobody knows and therefore we are all interested in. Once we have selected it, now we have to start saying, okay, what about this case? So what did we do? And especially, what were the results? So this is what we're going to be discussing as this next step of the capitalization process. When we have selected the case, we have to describe it. And we can describe a lot of, of, of what the case was about because we have it in our heads. We've been there, we know what we did, and we know what the results were. But many times we need to go a little bit further. So it is not just that we start talking about it, because in some cases we don't know everything, or in some cases other people have a different perspective or a different view. So we have to go and ask those people. That means that we have to ask for information, to look for more information that we can put together and then get a more complete story. If you remember this slide, basically what we need to do is that we need to identify what type of information we are looking for. We need to go and look for it. So we need to collect it, for which we can do different things we're going to see in a minute. And then we need to organize this information so that we know what we know and we know what we have. And all of you, you all work with computers and you all work with files. And I'm sure that you have all lost a file because we don't know where we stored it. When we start collecting information, this is the general situation, that we have so much, we have so many papers, or we have so many files that we simply don't know where things are. So we have to be very careful because we need to know what we have in order to use it. And this is also that we can describe the case in detail. And when we talk about a description, we need to know, as it says here, activities, we need to know context, we need to know results, we need to know challenges, and we need to know the solutions, which means basically what happened, what did we do, and what were the results. If you see this slide, there are these sets of questions which help us identify exactly what is it that we need to be telling others. So we need to tell what were you doing, who was involved, when did it take place, where did it take place, why did these things take place. If you look at these questions, that's basically all the things that we normally answer. Even if we don't put those questions, we are just, when we're telling our story, when we're telling what we did, we are basically answering this. No, the good, the bad, the things that happened as they happened. Not inventing them, no, but truly reflecting on how things were the way they were in the field. But in order to do this, in order to respond to these questions, as I was saying, we need to identify the information. So we need to go get a lot of what we have here, and then we need to go and looking for other sources. And when we talk about other sources, we think of quantitative information, but also qualitative information. So it is not just numbers, but it's also opinions. And then we need to look at primary information, for example, what I know, what my colleagues know, the things that I can observe in the field, but also secondary information, which is all of that which is, let's say, in reports that have already been written, in websites that have already been presented, in the documents that you have already been submitted. I think this is important to remember that most of the times we are not starting from zero. So you have already written a lot. You have already presented reports. You have already been discussing, and you have already, I don't know, even shared emails. So let us not forget that if the information is already there, well, we can just copy it. And at the same time, if you think that a particular person, a colleague, or some farmers, or some beneficiaries, or whoever has some information, then we have to find a way to collect it, to get it from that person. No, so basically what we're trying to do here is to make sure that we collect what we need to collect. Yeah, and then how do we do this? That's the second part. We collect this. I don't think we need to talk a lot about that because that's something that you do regularly. You need to do this by, well, reviewing documents, by running surveys, by running interviews, by making focus groups, or maybe by simply talking to somebody. So if I go to the field and I'm just sitting there with a lot of beneficiaries, I can collect a lot of information. If I'm not allowed to go there because of where the lockdown in which I'm sitting, well, I can just organize one of these survey monkeys, for example, and I can send an email and ask everybody to answer to some questions. So there are different ways in which we do this. The important thing is that we prepare in advance, we knowing what we want to ask, who are we going to ask, and then another important thing is that we prepare to register. How are we collecting this? How are we copying it? How are we registering it? And then how are we storing it? Because something that happens very often is that we collect a lot, and then we have no clue what to do with it because we cannot even find it. Yes. Nowadays, and this is something that we have also mentioned before, nowadays it's very easy, for example, that if you're in the field, just to have a little video, because all of you have mobile phones with cameras, or most of us. So we go and we can film somebody saying something interesting. That is not difficult. If we don't have a camera, we have an audio microphone, so we can also record a voice. As I said, that is not difficult. That's very easy. The problem is, how do we store it? And how do we organize it so that we can use it? And that comes to this next part, that we need to organize the information that we have to be able to find it and to be able to use it. Many times we use timelines so that we start registering, okay, this is what happened 3 years ago, this is what happened 2 years ago, this is what happened 1 year ago, this is what is happening now, or this is what is going to happen next year. Now, so then in that way, we try to, with a very simple program or with a piece of paper, we can try to fill it in and then identifying or putting pieces of information into place. And the good thing of this is that it helps us not just to reflect while we are doing it, so we can identify, oh yeah, try to remember what was happening or try to remember what were key points. That is very useful. But at the same time, it is very useful for later when we go back or when we want to share it with somebody else. You cannot just go and share a lot of files that make no sense. You have to tidy it up if you want somebody else to understand it. Now we can do timelines, or we can do files, we can do templates, we can do checklists. We can, I like personally, I use those tables which some of you have seen, in which I start filling them up with pieces of information. And that helps me very much to see what do I know and also what do I not know yet, so that then I can go and ask somebody particularly. But then the question is not just, as we've been discussing also before, to describe it. We need to describe as much as possible. But the important thing is not just to describe it, but try to understand it. And in order to understand it, we need to ask ourselves, why? What happened here? Why did it happen? If we had some positive results, why did we have positive results? And why did we not have negative results? So the important thing here, and I think the most important part of this step, is to constantly be asking ourselves why and trying to understand what is it that contributed in a positive way or what is it that contributed in a negative way. And this is not, I think I'm always pushing ourselves to do this, not because I'm annoying, which maybe I am, but basically because I think that by forcing ourselves to ask why, then it becomes easier to draw conclusions and to understand, to draw the key lessons, which at the end of the day is what we are interested in. Remember, we are not interested in just describing a case. That is not the point of an experience capitalization process. We are interested in understanding it and in drawing lessons that can be used in a later case. So we have to come to try to get those lessons. And I think we are able to do it better if we are constantly asking why, what happened, and what the results were. There are many different ways to do the analysis. What we present here is just the difference between a description and an analysis. We've been discussing before how to go about it. We've been discussing about using indicators. We've been discussing about trying to find reasons behind each indicator. When you go to the e-course, you can read about all these different models, and I really recommend you to go and try them out. No, there are some which we use regularly. This SWOT analysis, I think it is very popular and we use it almost every day sometimes. But there are others, like a bit more elaborate, like an after action review, in which you get 4 clear questions. And by answering those questions, we start reflecting and understanding better. There's the other one of the 6 thinking hats that we've been trying also in the past, in which each one has a specific type of question, type of focus that you need to give. And in that way, we try to understand better. So we don't have the time at the moment to go through all of them, but you've seen them and they are there available. So if you haven't tested them, go and test them and try to specifically focus on that experience which we are analyzing right now by using it, by using one of these tools. All of them ask why. That is the key question here. But there's one which is called specifically the 5 whys. And it is a very simple technique in which whatever you are mentioning, you ask yourself why. And after you get an answer, you ask yourself why again. And after you get an answer, you ask yourself why again. And you do this for 5 or maybe 6 times. By the end of the 5th time, you realize that you have a lot of different ideas that you hadn't thought of before. And sometimes it is a bit like pushing it further and further, as you can see on this example. This is a very simple way, and you can do it both for positive or for negative aspects or results. As I repeat, by simply saying why, we are forcing ourselves to try to come to those ideas that we hadn't thought of before, but which can become very, can show a lot of the importance of the experience and especially show the lessons that we want to share. And we come to the last slide. When we have these answers to the why questions, it becomes easier to draw key conclusions and key observations, which are basically the lessons that we want to present and that we want to share. So these lessons can be about practically everything, but basically they relate to the original questions that we were setting up at the beginning. Why is this experience interesting? What part of the design or the strategy or the key elements that I was interested in, I can show and share. Remember, when we were discussing last time that we have to pick an experience which is interesting, all of you selected a case and then you were telling me, yeah, it's interesting because of this. It's interesting because nobody has done it before. It's interesting because the government is involved, or it's interesting because we are trying out a totally new technique that nobody has seen it. When you come back to the conclusions, you have to really demonstrate that those things that you were saying at the beginning are true. So you have to go back and see, provide the evidence that that idea that you mentioned, why it was so interesting, why it was so important, you're demonstrating it here. The government was involved because it provides a lot of money, because it helps them, I don't know, contribute in terms of food security, or because it helps them get reelected. I don't know. But by getting those explanations or answers from the analysis, it becomes clearer to identify the key points that you want to share and the key points that effectively demonstrate that your experience has been interesting, that your experience has something to tell to the world, and that will make people read it. Yes? Of course, this is not the end of the capitalization process. There's still a lot more to do, but we leave it here. And I would like then to spend some time with you on the groups, depending on how many we are, and see what is it that you're writing on these Google Docs. Yes. So let us see. Hilbert, you're still with us. That's good. So what I suggest we do is that if we are not so many, we could all go to the link or try to link the document which you have, which is called extension, because I think that that is the one that had the most participants last time. So we could go and see there, see what is it that people wrote last time, and see what is it that we should write for these two new questions that are there also on the file per person. You can identify them per color. So we can, if everybody agrees, let us go to open that document. Those of you who have written already last time, try to identify your own case, and then try to fill the next questions. Yes, and those of you who were not here last time, you could, if you have time, you can pick up one of the colors which is empty and start writing your ideas from the beginning. These documents remain open, so you can also do them afterwards. And Hilbert, if you run out of battery, you can also do it afterwards when the electricity comes back. Yes, so Daria, if that's all right, we just stay in this group, then we don't need to form separate groups.
Yeah, I think that's great. There are only 4 participants and 2 are coming in and out. I think that's a good number.
Yeah, so we can go to this extension file, and then I would like to hear from those who wrote, who have already a little bit of information there, and those of you who haven't done it, you can start filling it up and see how far we go. Yes, and then of course, please ask questions. The advantage of us being not so many is that you can just interrupt me and start talking yourselves and start asking, of course. So the floor to you. I'm going to open this document. So Wenxiu, I'm pronouncing your name right, I think, I hope. You're already writing your activities, what happened and what were the results, yes?
Yeah, I think it's like a mix of activities and results.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm not directly involved in the experience, I mainly base it from the documents.
Mm-hmm.
So this is until now what I've gathered. But I would dig deeper into this.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you all can see on what we call here the page 3, we are asking you to say, okay, what were the key activities? That's basically what did you do or what did your team do? And then the second question is what were the results? So what happened in terms of outputs or outcome? And then on page 4, we are asking you to go into the why question. So why did you have those results? Which is basically the same as saying, what were the factors that contributed in a positive way? Or what were the factors that contributed in a negative way? Not so actually the word why is not there, but that is what we are asking in this page. Yes. And of course it relates to the results that you were mentioning on the previous page. Yes. And Saudat, you sent your table separately, but we can see it here in this green color on slide number 14. So then the idea is, of course, for you to say what were the key activities and results, and then the question why. Yeah. So
on slides page 3 and 4. That's why I didn't just well fill it in. So what like me to now, I can just quickly fill out to the questions.
no, I think that you started very well with this, and then yeah, you just need to answer a few key ideas. Remember that this table is not going to be everything. Of course not. This is just a sort of checklist, no, or a key ideas that we put together, but which you, of course, need to elaborate much further. No,
right.
This is more just for us to share with each other, and that your colleagues can also see more or less where you're going. But I would really recommend you to do this in a much more expanded way for yourself. What's important when you start thinking about activities and results is something that we were discussing last time, that you cannot say everything you've done or that this project has done. You cannot report all the results, because then it becomes an impossible document, which is far too big.
Right.
That's impossible. So then it is very important when you select an experience that you select a particular case. You select something that you have been involved, for example, in one district, or something that happened in a given period of time with a small group. Because if you start talking about empowerment of women in the whole country, imagine how big would that be?
So it was within the project scope, basically, but you are right. It is a lot of information. So I have to concretize.
Yeah.
I mean, just to choose one, focus on one concrete.
Yes.
Let's say activity, rather not the district but the activity, because
Yes.
I got your point.
I think that makes it easier. It makes it easier not just for you to describe, but also easier for everybody to understand it. No, because at the end of the day, you're going to be presenting this as a short document, maybe, I don't know, an article, or maybe a blog post, or maybe, I don't know, a presentation. So you have to remember that your target audience will not have the time to read everything about everything. That's impossible. No, so the more you narrow it at the beginning, the easier it is for you to write it, and the easier it is for the reader to understand it. The important thing that you have to bear in mind is, how do you narrow it? So what part of the work that you're doing, how do you choose it? And that's why I was saying you have to choose something which is going to give you interesting lessons, or something which is that part of your work which is different than the rest, or which is different than other people are doing. Now, you see what I mean? So, for example,
yes.
for example,
Actually, just I have already decided, because that what you have said is very important. If I focus on one activity, so I would like just to talk mainly about the capacity building of the female extensionists, and that would be really just important. Because,
yeah.
the role. There are very few female, let's say, extensionists or agronomists in Tajikistan, and that would be very important to raise awareness and also just to promote the role of the farmers, female farmers.
But and then again, there, if you're going to do female extensionist, then don't talk about female extensionist in general or in the whole country, but try to pick a case. So perhaps you pick a few cases that you know, a few persons, and you identify what they've done, or you pick a district where these women are working and you identify what did they do and what the results were. So if you just pick a few cases or a small district or the work they did in, I don't know, within 1 year, then it becomes easier to show it as an example. And on the basis of that example, you can draw conclusions and recommendations. But remember that when we're talking about experience capitalization, at the end of the day, it's basically one example. It is like a case study.
Okay. Yeah.
Because no, the case study, which is not just one's case study, what somebody was involved. No, the one where you were involved, where you know, and then you're talking more about your, well, your work, your involvement, your participation, or something that you know very well, and that because you know it so well, it becomes much more interesting to read.
Okay. So
yes,
a personal story. So
yeah.
okay.
We had this discussion last week also with Weng Xiu, because she was saying, yeah, well, I was not directly involved, or not, or not my experience. In some cases, it is also possible to write about somebody else's experience, but the closer you know about it, the closer it is to yourself, the more you know about it, the easier it becomes to write about it and to analyze it and to come with very interesting conclusions. No, that's a bit obvious. So that's what we want to aim to. We want to come with nice conclusions, interesting new things that nobody else has told you before, because that is what people want to read.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. And so I have started already thinking in this direction. So about the examples and the impact of this activity are within, well, by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So because in comparison with those districts where no female extensionists were present. That would be really interesting.
I think it is an interesting. Yeah, no, I think it is an interesting subject. Yeah, but as I said, make it easy for yourself by picking a narrow experience.
Sure.
And then put it there, put it on the slides. For example, if you see the slides that other people were writing, then you will see that in some cases we were asking to identify where, when, no?
Right.
So then you pick one district, you pick a number of persons, you pick a special category of persons, as you're doing, you pick a time period, no? And that is what we normally call the boundaries of the experience, no? So that it makes it clear for you and for everybody that you are not talking about everything. No, you're talking about something very concrete.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for your input.
No,
really good insights.
No, I'm happy to read about your article afterwards. Yes. I would like to hear from somebody. Hilbert, do you want to join us if you're still there? Or are you not connected? Messias, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
You've been before in a meeting with me, and we've been discussing this before, trying to describe and to analyze.
Yes.
What would you tell your colleagues, the other participants here in this group? What would be your suggestions about how to do this?
Well, maybe I just have to dwell on my current experience capitalization in Malawi. Yes, I've just started an experience capitalization, which is ongoing experience.
Uh-huh.
So it started in 2019 in October. We trained a group of farmers on fish farming techniques. And what happened is that, most of clubs have been formed with the objective of NGOs filling up the indicators, especially quantitative indicators that, okay, we've formed, let's say 10, 15 clubs, but these clubs haven't gone through training, you know. So after we trained them in aquaculture, they have seen that they have common problems. And then it's when they have formed a center whereby selected members of 19 clubs could meet in that center to discuss the common aspects that they are having in Malawi. And as such, they formed the Kaliseru Center where these guys meet.
Okay.
And yes, they are meeting on regular basis, but still there is a lot to discuss. Now, I'm still on page 2. What is this? Sorry. So what is the case that you want to describe? That what I want to describe is the benefits of these benefits and the challenges of the Kalisuru Center. Uh, what is special in the or interesting is that working as a group will help to solve the problems which could not
Yeah.
be solved by one person. Working as a group will promote sharing of information, knowledge, and experience, empowers group members through education, training, and sharing ideas that if one could be together wasn't able to achieve this. Yes, because fish farmers have been neglected, contrary to agriculture farmers.
Yeah.
So I think this is very interesting
Yeah.
case.
No,
And
no, sorry,
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. So what are my objectives? What did you solve? Do you want to solve? I mean, first of all, I want to document this because this initiative is happening in a small community. And because there are other communities that might be sharing the same challenges, I think by showing what is happening in Malawi and Blantyre, I think it can stimulate others to take this bottom approach rather than being initiated by outsiders. So I think this is very important to share.
Yeah. No, I think you're making a very nice case for that experience, for that particular case, for that group of persons with whom you're working. And I think what I was just mentioning to Sal, that this is very interesting at the beginning, no, because you need to clearly point out why are you selecting that case and not something else. No, so I think these are the ideas that you need to start putting on your document from the beginning, which is very good. Then we come to the description of the activities themselves, which you still need to do in more detail, and then we come to the analysis, isn't it? No, which is
Yes.
to try to identify why is it that it works or why doesn't it work. No, what I wanted, if you can reflect, if you remember what we were discussing the previous time we met, and you've done this, so what according to you, what is the big difference between the description and the analysis?
The description and analysis is that when you analysis means that you have to you have to start from the beginning. You need to look at your title or your objectives and the experience itself, and then analyze, because is the analysis that will take you to a conclusion.
Yes.
If you do not analyze, it will just be a description. A description is
Yes.
any, you don't end your story with a description, but an analysis, uh, it brings you are also part of the capitalization. And then it's through analysis that we will take us to a conclusion, you know.
Do you remember?
Um,
Do you remember how we were suggesting to do the analysis?
uh, I may not,
Because I think that what you're pointing is crucial. It's very important to make a difference between description and analysis. The question is, how do we do it? And one very easy way of focusing on the analysis is to remember that when we analyze, basically what we're doing is we're saying if something or the experience is good or bad. So we're giving an opinion. We're trying to say is if what we're doing is good, or we're going to try to say if what we're doing is bad. But then we don't leave it like that. We try to say it is good because blah, 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 blah. Or it is bad because blah, blah, blah. Isn't it? So then we can say that something is good because it is very participatory, or something is good because the impact has been fantastic, or something is good because it is going to be sustainable. Now, all those ideas help us say, yes, it is good. At the same time, we can say that something is bad because it is not participatory, or it is bad because it is not sustainable. And then we realize two things when we are doing this. The first thing we realize is that things can be good and bad at the same time. They can be good because they're participatory, but they can be bad because they are not sustainable. So this gives us the possibility of exploring something in more detail. And the second thing is that we do not just say, oh, it is bad because it is not participatory, because then somebody immediately will ask us, why wasn't it participatory? So we are making it easier to give this why. And then we start thinking, oh, it was not participatory because the facilitator was talking too much, because the rooms were far away, because the timing of the venues were not adequate, blah, blah. So you see what I mean? Then we're making it easier to give an opinion. But basically, what we need to do is give an opinion. So that is the main difference. When we are describing, we don't give opinions, we just say what we did. When we are mentioning results, we also don't need to give opinions. We're just saying, oh, we produced this, we grew so much, we ate so much, we earned so much money, blah, blah, blah. It is when we go into the analysis that we start saying good or bad. And if we clearly say, why is it that it is good or bad, then we're coming up with ideas that we didn't know before most of the times. And that is the nice part of this exercise, that we start discovering things that we didn't know before and things that other people are going to be interested in reading, which will become the let's say, the key element of the article that we are going to be presenting, and the thing that people really, really want to read. Yes?
yeah.
I have one question, actually. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No, please, please.
And I got a little bit confused about what you have said. So, well, if I rephrase your, it means that in the analysis we don't express feelings. So we just keep asking why to find out the root cause. And, my question is now, are we supposed at the end of the let's say case study, while just developing this case study, write I don't know, any recommendations then? Because recommendation is mostly your personal opinion, also could be.
Yeah, certainly. No, of course I think we have to come with recommendations. But the idea is that what we do before, what we're doing now with this analysis is we're trying to set the framework for these recommendations so that it becomes very clear that they don't come out of the blue. Whatever you're going to be recommending has to have some arguments. There has to be evidence. There has to be a lot of, arguments for saying what you're saying, and so that people believe you and get convinced. If I just tell you, oh, you have to go and eat more potatoes, that's a very nice recommendation, but there's no reason why you are going to believe me or why you are going to follow that recommendation. So if I want you to follow that, I have to come with a bit more evidence. I have to demonstrate that what I'm saying is correct. I have to, what we call this, build a whole argument and demonstrate that if I'm telling something about potatoes, I have to demonstrate that I am the one who knows more about potatoes than anybody else, because otherwise you are not going to believe me. Now, so the whole description is, I would say, what do I know about potatoes, what I have done, what have I achieved. On the analysis, I say, why do I think that what I've done is good? I provide the evidence, and then with that, I am able to come with these recommendations, and I tell you, please go and eat more potatoes, or do it like this, do what I'm saying, because you're going to believe me, because there's a whole background behind it. But I agree with you, we have to get there. That is the most important part. That is what we not only call it recommendations, we mostly talk about lessons, but basically it is recommendations. It is the key ideas that we wanted to find from the very beginning, and which we tell somebody else, but many times we just tell ourselves. So the recommendations go to me for my new project, for my new activities, or for my colleagues. But yeah, it's basically the same thing. Yes?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Clarification. So
yeah. But I think you're going to be doing that, no? At the end of if you go to these tables we were saying, which I know it's very simplistic. This is just what we are doing in order to help each other. But if you see these factors, I'm just looking at your document. You are on the blue color, so consider resistance to change. Constant accompaniment, not only by training. From there, you can already draft a recommendation. And then you need to say something about it. And then you're going to say to the next person who's going to be organizing a training course, you're going to tell him or her, do it like this. Don't forget about that. Remember to do it regularly. Remember not to focus only on the training, but also on the mentoring, blah, blah, blah. You put it as a recommendation, but a recommendation with a lot of evidence. And the evidence is all the things that you've been, doing in the previous pages. Yes?
yeah, sure. Yeah, people actually are answering the question. So it means that I have, then rephrase, I mean, just revise all my writings then, and starting from the slide 1 about the objectives and reasons and etc. So to be more concrete, more detailed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, as I said before, this is just a very short outline just for sharing. You can use these Google Docs where we all can write. But of course, I would really invite you to put a lot more detail, for which you may need a lot more space. Remember
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, when we talk about description, for example, no, if I don't know whose page is it, but if you just say, okay, I did training, that's very nice, but it doesn't say so much. So then you would really need to say, where was the training? When did it take place? Who attended it? How many people were there? How often did you do these trainings? What was the content of the training? So try to make a story out of it. All of that is the description. And you need to fill it up. Of course, If you put all of that into this Google Doc, it doesn't fit.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be there. On the contrary, it has to be there. But you just have to well, expand it somewhere else. But I would really suggest all of you, not everybody, to expand it as much as possible. We have the good luck nowadays of writing with computers. Of course, long ago, we didn't have this and we would be writing in paper, but now it's very easy. So we can just write it on the computer and then we just move the text around, put it here, put it there. And most probably we will be deleting a lot. But it is always easier to delete than to write more. So don't be afraid of writing a lot and putting a lot of details. Of course, it may take you some time, but it is, yeah, I don't know how to say this. There's a saying in Spanish, which goes a bit like, well, it's better to have more than to have too little. So what I'm saying is don't be afraid to get the details, no? Because remember that the details are also what are going to help other persons understand what you are saying, because we have not been in your country. We have not met the people that you have met. So if you don't tell us how it is, it becomes difficult to understand.
Yeah, sure. You're right, actually, and you're for sure right about just revising the writings details, or deleting. It's easier with the contemporary technologies. But anyway, just I got. Anyway, just I have to revise it more and put more details, as you said. Maybe just by the next webinar, I will just then have more, let's say, feasible or more viable, actually, writings.
If before we finish, we have a few minutes, but before we finish, one suggestion. I was in the last workshop I was involved in. I was in Uganda, and we tested something that I think works quite well, which is recording your voice under Word. And that's something that you can do on your mobile phone or on Word on the computer. The only thing for which you need is to have a very good internet. So if you have good internet at a certain moment, record your voice on the text so that it writes what you are saying. You can find how it works on Word, or you can also find it on even on WhatsApp, on anything, on all the programs. It doesn't come out perfect, but it comes quite good. So you just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and everything is written down on the computer. And of course, you need to edit it afterwards, and you need to put full stops, and you need to organize it. But it is a very useful way of putting everything that you have on your head into the computer without typing. And I like it. To me, it helps a lot because, as you all know, we are faster talking than typing. So many times when we are typing, we just forget the idea that we wanted to say, or we struggle. So if you manage to do this, just start talking about your experience. Start talking, oh, this is what we did, and blah, 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 blah. And then you will see that it is written down, and then you try to edit it. And when you start editing, you will make it nicer. But as I said, it helps for you as a sort of way for putting your initial ideas. If you don't know how this works, you have to search a little bit, because probably depends on the program that you are using. But I think most programs are able to do that now, and most of them write very well, and it works. And I've been using it myself. I learned this from my Ugandan friends, which it's always nice to go to a workshop and end up being the one who learns most from the participants. But I learned this from some participants, and it worked. And I've been using it to write some article that I needed to write, but I didn't know how to get started. So I just put it and I started talking, blah, 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 blah. And then I just edit it. Fantastic. So that's a recommendation for everybody. And of course, before you do that, start by putting some sort of key ideas, as we are doing on this Google Doc. And the good thing about this Google Doc is that you can also see what other people are doing. So that's the whole point of these sessions, that you can also learn from others. And you can see that if somebody puts a little bit more detail, it probably means that you also need to put a little bit more detail. Yes? Are there any questions before we finish?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Wen. Yeah, I would like to just ask a little bit more, and also based on your recommendation that we had better to narrow down the topic, I had tried to narrow down it to how a specific document is becomes available, which can greatly help them farmers. So I want, yeah, just my thought. I hope it's still related to the narrowing down the topic, and I hope it's still good for.
You mean your document?
Yeah, I mean my capitalization. I would like to focus it on how a certain policy document is has been produced.
Okay. I'm sure that is not a problem.
Yeah.
No, of course not.
And then this can be much more specific, like how the latest regulation has been produced.
Yeah. But you haven't changed it yet on the document, or you have?
Sorry, which document?
On the Google Doc.
I have changed it.
Okay. No, then let me see it. But you can continue adding your ideas there, and well, I can try to look at it, and I can, when Sophie comes back, she will also look at this, and then yeah, comments. If you have any specific question about the things that you have written down, you can always send an email to me or to Sophie or to Daria.
Yeah, just a little bit clarification of my idea, if it's feasible.
You mean right now?
Okay, I'm fine.
No, I can do it.
More
Yeah,
determined, you know.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to read it right now. I'm trying to find it and to read it. I can see the adoption of good practice hygiene for small-scale production and sale manual in Hungary. That's the one?
I don't see where's mine.
That is on the red color.
Red. Okay. Yeah, the adoption of the manual.
Oh yeah. Adoption of the manual. Yeah. No, I think this is, as we were discussing, narrower, so that makes it easier. And then when you start expanding these ideas, you can also make sure that it becomes even narrower by saying who is going to be adopting this, where are you looking at this adoption, what group of persons are going to be adopting this, when did you or is this adoption taking place? Now, the more of those details that you give, the easier it will be for the description.
Yeah, but as it's a national policy document, it's more like it's adopted by the ministry.
Yeah, okay, but
it's
then that's
formally
what you have.
Recognized.
Exactly. No, but then you have to say that adopted by the ministry, so that it becomes clear that you're not talking about adoption by farmers. You see what I mean?
And maybe if I want to add case studies, I also need to add like one case how the local farmers is adopting this.
That's possible, but that may be another document altogether.
Okay.
I would say, okay, you focus on the adoption by the ministry,
Mm-hmm.
and then you need to tell us very clearly what ministry, when did this happen, when did the ministry first read about this manual, how did the manual come to the ministry itself, and then you can
Mm-hmm.
tell us what were the steps that were taken
Yeah.
for this adoption to take place.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah,
what I want
but
to.
yeah, no, I think this is good. But then, for example, you are not going to be telling us how the manual was written or when did it start or what about the farmers or about hygiene standards. No, because you're going to focus on adoption, which means that you're going to be telling us, well, what the steps towards this adoption. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible to write everything about hygiene standards, but you don't have the time to do that. So that's why if you only focus on the adoption, it becomes easier and it becomes more interesting. And then your lessons at the end of the day are going to be on adoption.
All right.
Yeah. And that the recommendations, what we were discussing a few minutes ago, the recommendations are going to be, if you want this to be adopted by another ministry, you have to do this. Or if you want this to be adopted by the Ministry of Austria or by Italy, then they have to do that. It becomes very concrete and it becomes easier to give recommendations.
All right.
Hmm?
I see.
Yes? I think that what you've done is a good thing. And then, as I say, that helps you in description. And then it will help you in the analysis, and then it will help you get more concrete recommendations. And that makes a much better capitalization process.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yeah.
Do I convince you?
Yeah. And I think for my case, because I collect information mainly from external, how to say, secondhand or documents, and that the second person, I sometimes a little bit hesitate, like how to convince, how to make build trust with others and
Yeah.
let them to convince
Yeah.
to provide me the information.
Well,
Even I have some networks already on this.
well, that is true, and that is a good point that we haven't discussed very much. When you are trying to collect information, you have to, well, find ways in which you're going to be successful. You're going to what we call triangulation. So you ask one people, and then you ask somebody else, and then you compare if they're telling you everything or telling you the truth or not. Because some people can be very talkative, and some people will not answer your questions for different reasons. No, so you have to really try different approaches simultaneously. In some cases, you can do interviews. In some cases, you can do focus groups. In some cases, you can just send a survey via the email, and that's enough. But I would suggest that you try different things. And the more you do that, then the more you are sure that you have the complete set of information. Many times you just have to go and read documents because a lot of it's already written there. Or maybe you just need to go and see for yourself. Or talk to a key persons.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's I think on the module there's a lot of information on how to do interviews, on how to do questionnaires. I would advise you also to go there and to look at this, because before you start planning. And then the most important recommendation is always make sure that you know what are you going to be asking, so that you don't waste the opportunity. Because it happens many times that we imagine you want to talk to the minister and you finally get an appointment with the minister, and then you don't ask all the right questions. So it is a wasted opportunity. Hmm? Yes?
Okay, thanks.
Yes, so that you're asking about the Google Docs. I believe that everybody can continue using them. Please do. If there is any problem with the Google Doc, just send me an email. But of course, you can continue using and continue updating them. Please do, and please complete your case as much as possible. If anybody of you has any problem, not just with the Google Docs or with anything, just send me or Sophie a question, and yeah, and then we can try to help. Yes, Anthony, nice to see your name here, although I don't see your face. Yes, send me an email, please. And yeah.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Oh.
Yes, I was carefully listening, and we proceed with fulfilling the document in the Google Docs, I suppose.
Yes.
And do we write as well our abstract somewhere, or we
Yes.
full all the text there?
No.
How to make the case? How to describe this experience capitalization?
I think that's a good question you raise, because next time we're going to be talking about writing, but I would advise you to start the writing already. Okay. The Google Doc is very good for sharing. It's very good for putting lists of ideas, but I think it is not so good for a long text because it doesn't fit. So I think I would advise you to have another text, another document where you can write a lot. And you can always send that to me if you want comments. But as I say, the Google Doc is more for us to share so that you can know what Anthony is doing and Anthony knows what Gilbert is doing, not just to share a little bit. But the long document, I think you need to expand it much more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
thank you.
Try to expand as much as possible. Make use of the time that you have to write all these ideas. Try to write, as I say, a lot. Try to record your voice by writing. Do this exercise because that helps you write a lot. And then next time we meet, you already have a document that we can look at in more detail.
Okay. Now I understand that more context is needed, like about the former Soviet Union influence, about the potential to learn and gain the skills in this environment. Okay, understood.
Well, one of the things that we are going to be discussing next time when you write is that remember that you are writing for somebody else to read it. So try to visualize who is this person who is going to be reading. Because, for example, if you're going to be writing about the context of the Soviet Union and you think that I am the reader, remember, I don't know anything about the Soviet Union. I was not there. I don't know how it worked. I don't know what the problems were. So all those things you have to tell me. Because if you don't tell me, then I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand your experience. No, so remember, and as I say, we're going to be discussing that next time, but remember who is the reader and put yourself in his or her position when you write. And then think, oh, do I need to say all of that? And maybe you do because the reader doesn't know it. Yes? But don't worry about editing at the moment. Don't worry about putting it nice. Don't worry about language or spelling mistakes. No, that is useless at the moment. Don't worry. At the moment, what you need to focus is on the content. And the content is the answers to those questions that we were talking about. Many times, we waste a lot of time putting it very pretty. As if we are doing the homework for school. We want to put it very pretty and we want to use different colors and we want to underline the titles. That's nice, but at the moment it's not necessary. Think about the content, and then next time we will discuss about the format and the style. All right? Good. So if there are no more questions, I will leave it here. Please continue with this. Please continue with the Google Docs. Please continue with your own documents. And please send me an email. I know I'm a bit annoying that I sometimes don't answer emails immediately, but I do answer them. So send an email and then we continue with the exercise. Yes. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Thanks a lot to everybody. Nice to meet you again. Take care and stay healthy.